please welcome Eva.
At the end of January this year, an economist said on live radio that global warming was a real chance, notably for India. The journalist replied that indeed, the economic opportunities of global warming were poorly discussed in public debate, and that it was a good point. At the beginning of March, the CEO of Airbus, the French aerospace leader, claimed on public television that planes were more sustainable than trains. No one contradicted him. Journalists looked surprised, but did not say a word. At the end of March, the spokesperson of the Rassemblement National, the French far-right political party, claimed that renewables did not work on live television. The journalist approved and then laughed. I could go on like this for a long time. These are signals that climate disinformation has invaded our news media. In only 3 months of airtime, from January to March 2025, we detected 128 cases of climate disinformation in French TV and radio. You probably thought that climate disinformation was only happening on social media, right? Well, if only. Climate disinformation has invaded the informational source citizens trust the most, our news media. And in the meantime, climate media coverage decreases. Between 2023 and 2024, we lost in France 30% of coverage. And this is worse. Climate media coverage peaks during extreme weather events, but only to describe those events. Climate media coverage and the solutions stagnate and even decreases during those media events. This means we speak less of solutions when public attention is at its highest. And this means that while climate disinformation gains ground, access to quality information is decreasing. This is a collective issue, because this means we are losing citizens' attention. We are also aggravating climate anxiety by silencing levels of action that could make us feel in motion to remedy the crisis at every level. This also means that we are giving companies that pollute a free pass to pursue this lucrative path, and it is at the expense of the rest of us. And this also means that we are discouraging decision makers and political leaders to address global warming, biodiversity loss, and resource depletion through ambitious commitments and policies. This is what incentivized me and my co-founders to launch QuotaClimat. In 2022, we were working at the French Parliament as parliamentary assistants during the French presidential election. And in March, the 6th IPCC report had just been launched, claiming that not only the existence of global warming and its human origin were unequivocal, but also that urgent action needed to be taken in order to save the billions of lives endangered. At the same time, we witnessed a mix of ignorance, disinterest, and curious defeatism when concrete measures were discussed by members of parliament, but also more largely by the political personnel. Naively questioning why that was the case, we realized that a crucial reason was the lack of media scrutiny when climate action was in question. It was incredibly easy to bullshit your way out of interviews when it came to climate change, and when even interviews addressed the issues, which was the exception rather than the rule. We even witnessed the far right being exempted from addressing the climate section of a debate to dedicate more time on immigration. Let's be honest, we were witnessing a failure of the news media to be effective counterpowers in the face of climate change. In some extreme cases, this failure even translates into a short-term inability to provide life-saving information in times of crisis. Remember last year in Valencia, Spain, where during the flood, fake emergency numbers circulated and prevented people from being rescued fast enough. When in Florida, United States, during Hurricane Milton, people refused to leave their homes because they were convinced that they would get preempted by the state. It seems that this failure is rapidly evolving into a post-truth situation where climate science is something you believe in and not something you know. A world where believing in climate science and the severity of its impact is becoming a political cleavage rather than a unifying threat. And by political cleavage, it means vulnerability to a coalition of convergent interests betting on it to thrive. I am talking about foreign interferences, but also about the fossil industry, the attention economy, and also the far-right movements. Because their interests are slowly converging, and they are trying to converge to slow climate action down, they reinforce themselves. And as Michael Mann, the American climatologist, calls them, they are the coalition of the unwilling. As we speak, they are winning. They are winning polls, they are winning elections, and they keep destroying our living conditions for their benefit. When they win, democracy loses. And when they win, humanity loses. But in the wake of this dystopia, we are not helpless. We have legal tools that can be mobilized to claim our right to information, to claim our right to honest and rigorous information, to claim our right to environmental information, and to claim our right to pluralism. This is what QuotaClimat does. We had been extensively monitoring climate media coverage in 2022, but starting from 2023, we started sending complaints to the French media regulator on uncontradicted climate disinformation cases. We were determined to put an end to impunity when it came to the negation of climate facts. To give you a rough estimate, we sent 25 complaints to the French media regulator on specific documented cases. And 1 year later, it worked. In 2024, for the first time, the media regulator published 3 warnings, and notably the first financial penalty for a case of climate disinformation on live TV against CNews, amounting to 20,000 euros. This was a world first. And this was proof that our right to quality information could still be defended, that we were not powerless in the face of climate disinformation campaigns and electoral strategies betting on it as a tool. It was the first time in history that a media regulator recognized the international climate consensus as a fact. This is unprecedented. But this could not only be the sole regulator's interpretation. This is why we wrote a citizen bill offering to modify media regulation in order to anchor it in hard law. We went to members of parliament, and one by one, we convinced them that defending the integrity of information on climate change was mutually beneficial, that it was a win-win, that no one could honestly be proud to feel and feed and politically benefit from collective deception. And 3 years after the beginning of this advocacy work, 80 members of parliament are championing the bill from left to right. This is proof that climate science can still unify, that this is not too late to fight for this right, that we can fight for our rights. And there is still a long way to go to solidify our fundamental right to environmental information, and before news media become effective counterpowers, enabling us to fight anti-climate forces at equal terms. But we strongly believe that this is not a lost fight, as we are often being told. If we manage to obtain accountability in France, it can be obtained elsewhere. We are now members of the Climate Action Against Disinformation, a global coalition of over 80 organizations making everything they can to empower civil society. The message is, we are not alone, but we need everyone to join the fight for information integrity. Because the battlefield is our values, our beliefs, our daily actions. To act alongside us, you can start diversifying your sources of information. You can make your expectations known to newsrooms and journalists. You can train your critical thinking. And you can support organizations like ours that fight for information integrity for the sake of all of us. Thank you.